It has begun again today. 7 a.m. wake up, 8 a.m. briefing, 11:45 a.m. preparation. And the Calabasas procedure. My job is to supervise this procedure every day. To ensure no one makes a mistake, that nothing changes. 10 minutes before insertion. The team went directly to the site. Father Henson has been here for 3 months, but he already has dark circles under his eyes. And D287, I don't need his name. I can hear the fear in that guy's voice. Of course. Because he doesn't even know why he's here. Exactly at 12 o'clock, the team passed through the door that leads to that place. On the screen, a desolate salt flat unfolded, as always. I remember the first time I saw this site. That night I had a nightmare, but now it's just an everyday scene. The team arrived at the circular pillar complex. Before the foundation knew what was underneath, it was just considered a strange structure. Now we know. Too much. Father Henson began the ritual and sprinkled holy water while slowly circling the pillars counterclockwise. I hope it ends safely today too. D.A.87 was handed a black obsidian dagger and slit the chicken's throat. When I retire, someone else will take my place, and they will record the same words. This is not a belief or a tradition, but a habit for survival. 12:17 p.m. Blood suddenly flowed from Father Henson's forehead. What went wrong? If this is my fault, I deserve to go to hell. Because soon everything will die. You saw me, and in that moment it was not your eyes that gazed upon me. It was your soul, bare and trembling, pressed against the veil. I saw you, and that was your mind that has always steered me. Protocol 4 was activated. But I knew it was already too late. For the first time in 70 years, the Calabasas procedure failed. If this record is found by someone, I'm sorry. We failed. A few minutes ago, a report came in from Site 167 that the Calabasas procedure failed. We were not surprised that the Calabasas procedure, which was just a pretense, had failed. We were only desperate about what happened in the space beyond the door. I knew this day would come. The council was immediately convened for an emergency meeting, and 12 of the 13 council members gathered. Councilman 05-1 did not attend again. In fact, none of the council members have ever seen him directly. Even the title, him, is just a convention. All we know is his short commands on the headquarters intranet intermittently. We have been unable to find an answer for 70 years. After the 6th chain was broken, we tried everything to repair the broken chains, but all failed. The fictional ritual called the Calabasas procedure can no longer block the truth of destruction. The false veil of our control will be stripped away, and panic and chaos will soon engulf the foundation. The time has come to reveal this truth to everyone. The Calabasas procedure was just an illusion that bought us time. A being called the Devourer of Worlds, buried deep beneath the surface of the space beyond the door, is approaching. We have issued a full armament order to all site directors in preparation for an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. Mobile task forces and research staff directly under the Council are already heading to SCP-200. SCP-200, the only haven for after the apocalypse. It is a giant complex located deep underground in Yellowstone National Park. A facility that can clone about 100,000 humans a day, with humans selected for a chosen era by combining every possible gene pool of humanity. But if we think about it coldly, what's the point of cloning hundreds of thousands of humans a day if the Devourer of Worlds exists on Earth? In 10 minutes, we decided to deliver the final instructions to all national leaders to prepare for the end. 05-1 confirmed this final decision with a short message, approved. Since that day, each country continued its daily life, hiding the shadow of destruction. National leaders requested urgent communication with the Foundation, desperately seeking a solution, but we could not provide an answer. The Council considered lifting the containment of some SCPs and discussed ways to counter the entity they named the Devourer. But none of them were a sufficient alternative. In the end, It's just a gamble of unleashing another devil to fight a devil. Suicide reports piled up like mountains. Hundreds of agents who could not handle the fear took their own lives. Researchers who injected themselves with high-concentration amnestics, technicians who shot themselves in the head with a pistol. Who has the right to blame them? A report came in that Mobile Task Force Red Flag barely prevented the collapse of Site-19. Site Director John Tenon had unilaterally tried to lift the site's containment system. What's surprising is that SCP-682, whose containment was lifted, did not move a single step beyond the concrete door. The uproar was handled without a problem, but I can't understand why 682 acted that way. The recording agent reported that 682 seemed to have no will, as if it had already been subdued by someone. Since that day, the harbinger of destruction has slowly but surely approached. Supernatural phenomena poured in like a flood all over the world, and concealment was no longer possible. Since there was no way to administer amnestics to the entire 7 billion people in the world, the Foundation's influence shrank by the hour. People no longer believed the media or government announcements. They only believed the reality they saw with their own eyes, and the Foundation's control was now lost. There is one thing I don't understand. Since when did we become dominated by the idea that we could never stop the devourer? On the first day, a giant eyeball appeared in the skies of various countries around the world. It didn't move. It just watched. On the second day, time-stop phenomena were observed all over the world. On the third day, a giant chain fell from the sky, and several large cities were devastated. At this point, most national functions were paralyzed, and the power of the Sarkic cult grew rapidly. The cultists' sweet words were supported by the citizens, who said that this was not the end but the second coming of Yaldabaoth, which promised a new life freed from the bonds of the flesh. On the fourth day, all of humanity had the same dream. A dream of facing some being in an infinite darkness. After this day, people changed. The perception that nothing could be done seized the world, soldiers threw down their guns, and people threw away their lives. I was administered with a cognitive resistance agent, but the sense of helplessness still didn't leave my side. On the fifth day, a giant resonance wave originating from an unknown space covered the entire Earth. And on the sixth day, a huge explosion was detected on the moon. It was always watching us. This is a nationwide emergency broadcast. Remain indoors. Do not attempt to leave your home. A hostile entity of unknown origin has breached dimensional containment. Do not look directly at the anomaly. Do not approach the event zone. All military action has failed. This is not a drill. Code Kalaba's protocol has collapsed. The final chain is broken. We repeat. The final chain is broken. You were never safe. It was always watching. There is no containment now. I'm sorry, I couldn't protect your name and your ashes. It's funny. I just pretended to be crazy and showed that monster to Gungul. Because this could be a way too. They're the same kind of devils, but at least there is a way to contain Gungulyuk. I thought Gungul would climb its huge body and rip out that creepy eyeball. I was sure it would. Because Gungulyuk's rage is unstoppable. But what do you know, Gungul literally chickened out. Even with the containment door wide open, it didn't budge or try to approach it. It just crouched in a corner. Like a terrified child. At first, I thought the anomaly of that being nullified the abilities of other entities. But that wasn't it. How do I know? I directly projected the internal screen of Gungul's containment cell and saw its dog-like face. Gungul is running toward me. It's funny. It can't even get close to that one-eyed giant, but it's scared. Gungulyuk, even that devil that has massacred humanity. The real terror of that thing is not its size or the damn laser beams it shoots from its eyeball. It's the overwhelming sense of defeat and helplessness it instills in everything, so that they don't even think about fighting back in the first place. The certainty of victory, the yearning, the sense of accomplishment, passion, anger, all of it faded away. I opened all the containment cells. Let's see what happens. Not a single entity ran wild out into the world. They were just huddled in the corners of their narrow containment cells, bowing their heads in the darkness. We accepted death without even firing a single missile. All the Foundation's firepower, all the response protocols, all the SCPs. Nothing means anything. It's really funny. Am I lucky? The underground bunker site where I am located has not been attacked yet. As the world was heading for its end, a message arrived on my terminal. The sender was O5-5. It's really funny. In a situation where nothing can be done, it sends an incomprehensible message. It's not round. I tried to understand the meaning of the message. But without me even trying, a command suddenly surfaced from deep within my consciousness. Head to the containment cell on the 14th basement floor of Site-62. It was as if a deleted memory was restored in an instant. And I was convinced that if I go there, I can solve all of this. The sentence, "It's not round," must be a key to reactivating a part of my memory that was intentionally deleted. I was quite shocked to learn that even I, a council member, was used in the Foundation's plan. Just in case, I tried to contact other council members, but of course, they didn't receive the call. Anyway, I have to go. At this point, what other choice do I have but to head to Site-62? He must have a way. No, he must have a way. I arrived at Site-62 safely. It was 24 kilometers away, but I couldn't be sure. After the security authentication was complete and the door opened, a huge square concrete room appeared. There was one old computer terminal, and behind it, a black hole-like opening was shimmering. I was flustered. I expected O5-5 to greet me, but I had come to a room where an anomalous entity was contained. A message suddenly began to be transmitted on the computer terminal screen. The content of the message transmitted on the terminal was incomprehensible. "There's something I don't know. That can't be." At that moment, my body started to move on its own. I'm walking toward the shimmering black hole, regardless of my will. And I felt it. The fact that I am not human. Suddenly, my body feels alien. Was I an entity too? As if it had heard my thoughts, the computer terminal spoke to me. "Are you O5-5? Did we fulfill our mission as a mere shabby terminal? Do the other council members know this fact? I was contained in a human shell. In the safest situation as a council member. Why did it have to go this far? Couldn't you have told me the truth from the beginning? What happens now that I've realized? Why do I have to go back to how it was before? How many times has this situation been repeated? Is there a way to solve it? Billions have suffered and died. If there was a way like this, shouldn't we have done it sooner?" SCP-2362/Not a Planet. While other Foundation departments deal with anomalous entities on Earth, our astronomy department looks further away. Most people think space is empty, but we know that SCPs can exist there too. And last night, that premonition became a reality. Yesterday afternoon, during a routine observation of Pluto by the Foundation's observation satellite, the reflection characteristics of high molecular organic matter were detected on Pluto's surface. When I first opened the data log, I thought it was a simple error. I recalibrated the sensor and repeated the observation of the same section, but the result did not change at all. Just in case, I searched through past Pluto observation data. A year ago, 6 months ago, even last month, it was just an ordinary chunk of ice. But since when? Since when did Pluto change to this form? So I began a more precise analysis, and when I saw the results, goosebumps covered my entire body. SCP-2362/Not a Planet. While other Foundation departments deal with anomalous entities on Earth, our astronomy department looks further away. Most people think space is empty, but we know that SCPs can exist there too. And last night, that premonition became a reality. Yesterday afternoon, during a routine observation of Pluto by the Foundation's observation satellite, the reflection characteristics of high molecular organic matter were detected on Pluto's surface. When I first opened the data log, I thought it was a simple error. I recalibrated the sensor and repeated the observation of the same section, but the result did not change at all. Just in case, I searched through past Pluto observation data. A year ago, 6 months ago, even last month, it was just an ordinary chunk of ice. But since when? Since when did Pluto change to this form? So I began a more precise analysis, and when I saw the results, goosebumps covered my entire body. The reactions were mostly predictable. The majority of countries expressed unconditional cooperation, while some countries avoided immediate answers or remained silent. Accordingly, the Foundation, through information interception, found that certain countries were looking at this measure with suspicion, and the Foundation immediately deployed Mobile Task Force Omicron to major observation sites around the world. Although they act under the name of the International Astronomical Observation Union Cooperation Team, on the surface, their actual mission is only one: to detect and block all observation attempts related to SCP-2362. The most difficult problem was the artificial satellites. Since the observation satellites held by each country could potentially head toward Pluto, we hijacked some of their control. Of course, the countries are not aware of this. They will simply think it's a technical error or a communication failure. While all this work is in progress, Orpheus is quietly flying toward Pluto. We cannot reveal the truth yet. Maybe never. 7 years have passed since Orpheus was launched. At 3:12 a.m., Orpheus completed its entry into the 2362 orbit and sent its first image. It was not the Pluto I knew. The entire planet was covered in a hard chitinous shell, and the surface had organic curves with hexagonal patterns engraved in various places. What was even more bizarre was that certain areas changed temperature as if they were pulsating. As if it were alive. For a more detailed investigation, we decided to deploy a small unmanned probe, Icarus, to the surface of Pluto. The probe landed on a flat terrain near the equator, and the surface analysis equipment started operating. The data collected was shocking. Low-frequency vibrations were detected, occurring simultaneously in all directions at intervals of exactly 6 hours and 4 minutes. A phenomenon that could not be explained by simple geological activity, as if a giant contraction was occurring somewhere inside at a regular rhythm. The vibration pattern was more like a biological heartbeat. To confirm the identity of 2362 more clearly, we activated Icarus's sampling mode. The probe's drill slowly rotated and dug into the surface. When it reached a depth of 5.2 centimeters by penetrating the outer shell, the first sample was sucked into the collection container. So we waited for the sample data sent by Icarus, but a completely different signal was received from what we expected. Icarus was in an emergency protocol state and automatically transmitted the last video and data it absorbed just before it was destroyed. It was a giant organic, tentacle-like structure, hundreds of meters in diameter, protruding beyond Pluto's atmosphere. Orpheus, which was observing the orbit, also observed the giant tentacles. Pluto had not simply turned into a mass of organic matter. It was something alive. What was even more horrifying was that the tentacles that broke through the surface looked like they were hatching from a giant eggshell. Containment of this anomalous entity is impossible, even if all of the Foundation's technology and resources are mobilized. The Council immediately assigned a Keter class, but what does such a classification even mean? A single fear is now circling in my mind. I hope this anomalous entity does not have intelligence. The distance of 7 billion kilometers suddenly felt too close. I can't take it anymore. I don't know when that thing will wake up or when it will head to Earth. I have become the watchman of humanity. I know that Dr. Martin Kessler, who first discovered 2362 and observed it for 15 years, did not simply retire due to old age. He suffered from extreme paranoia, hallucinations, and mental disorder. He said he watched 2362 while taking dozens of medications. Antipsychotics, sleeping pills, anti-anxiety medications. But none of them brought peace to his mind. The doctor always checked the monitor. He muttered that if it ever started to move again and came to Earth, we would be finished. He barely slept. Even when nothing happened, he would come to the control room drenched in sweat as if he had a nightmare. That was his daily routine. On the day the observation probe Icarus was deployed to 2362, giant tentacles shot up through the ground, but after that, it was said to be surprisingly quiet. Only the large protruding tentacles subtly writhed. When I looked at Dr. Kessler's report from that time, he wrote that the entity did not seem to be a significant threat and appeared to have entered a dormant state again. But the doctor only wanted to believe that. If he really thought that, why would he be administered with amnestics and locked up in the Foundation's psychiatric ward for treatment? So, since 1998, for the past 7 years, I have been watching 2362, following in Dr. Kessler's footsteps. As time goes by, the fear and pain that Dr. Kessler felt become more vivid. The anxiety that humanity could be finished. The various delusions that come to mind while looking at that giant monster that has ceased its activity. I don't know how the days go by anymore. Sometimes, I get startled and stand up, thinking that 2362 is leading its huge body to deviate from its orbit. But when I check the data, there is no change. It's just my eyes getting tired and playing tricks on me. Even so, I keep doubting. Is there really no change? Are there no subtle changes that the sensors can't detect? Lately, I haven't been able to sleep well. Nightmares of those giant tentacles stretching across space toward Earth. When I wake up from such a dream, I rush to the control room to check the monitor and feel relieved. But this sense of relief doesn't last for even a day. So, in a never-ending cycle of fear and anxiety, I feel my mind being eaten away as I monitor that monster. But I can't stop. Because someone has to watch. On August 24, 2006, the International Astronomical Union, following the Foundation's instructions, expelled Pluto from the Solar System. The world knows it as a redefinition of the term planet, but the real purpose of that decision was different. To gradually erase Pluto itself from humanity's memory. For decades, the Foundation has thoroughly controlled direct observation and access to Pluto, but now that's not enough. If you ask why, it's because Pluto no longer exists where it was. Of course, some scientists who did not know about the Foundation's existence strongly opposed the decision to expel Pluto. They raised issues in public academic journals and questioned it through the mass media. But we covered up their voices through prominent astronomers affiliated with the Foundation. Fortunately, the public never cared about that chunk of ice in the first place. After reviewing the data that the Foundation removed, the leaders of each country accepted all the measures. No, supported would be a more accurate expression. They also saw what happened last month. All these measures were initiated because of an incident that occurred a month ago. Pluto broke its silence and finally hatched. Pluto was just an egg. The real being hidden inside was an organism of an unimaginable scale. At this very moment, a giant jellyfish-like being with a diameter of 2,100 kilometers is floating in outer space. A fierce debate erupted at the emergency-convened Foundation Strategy Headquarters. The hardliners who wanted to launch a probe equipped with a nuclear weapon to eliminate 2362 clashed with the cautious ones who argued that a rash attack would only provoke the entity. In the end, both sides reached a compromise. To hold off on the attack but to maintain constant tracking while being fully prepared. Currently, the Foundation's probe, Eureka, is continuously tracking 2362 from a safe distance while loaded with a nuclear weapon. According to its observed flight path, the creature is heading toward Barnard's star. We still don't know why it's heading there. But at least the fact that it's in the opposite direction of Earth was a ray of hope for us. A while later, we observed something shocking. A bizarre behavior reminiscent of a creature's reproductive process. 2362 approached another celestial body, slowly inserted a giant tentacle into its interior, and we could confirm that an unknown substance was being transmitted into the celestial body through the tentacle over 48 hours. Once the injection was complete, 2362 pulled out the tentacle and headed toward Barnard's star again. So far, there have been no external changes to the celestial bodies where the injection was confirmed. However, we know that an irreversible change has already begun inside. For this being, space might have been nothing more than a medium for laying eggs. Since then, the Foundation has decided to send probes to the planets where 2362 has planted its seeds, and we must continuously monitor and study them. SCP-610/The Flesh That Hates. People ask me, how can you do such a thing? Then I always give the same answer. That I had no choice. But that's a lie. There was definitely a choice. I just had no choice but to make the right one. A life as a gray between white lies and black truths. All of this began on March 15, 2010. That day was an ordinary day too. At least until I checked her text message. I was stuck with a client's sudden code modification request and almost forgot about my dinner appointment with Emily. Emily Carter. My fiancée. The smartest and most beautiful woman in the world who researches microorganisms. If I had received Emily's call back then, would the outcome have been different? I'm leaving you a text because I can't reach you by phone. Something's wrong at the lab. A sample was leaked, and all the researchers are being checked and are locked in a containment room. I think it'll be sorted out soon, but I might not be able to meet you tonight. I'm sorry. And don't tell anyone about this. Our lab wants to handle it quietly and move on. Back then, I just thought it was something that happens often in labs. After that, I sent several calls and texts, but Emily didn't reply. After a few hours of no contact, I headed to the lab. At least I could find out what was going on. Helix, a state-of-the-art research lab operated by the giant pharmaceutical company Apex. Emily was proud to work there. She always got excited when she explained about the Helix lab. Rare microorganism samples collected from all over the world and a massive research budget. Even direct cooperation with government agencies. It was literally a dream job. When I arrived at the entrance of the research complex, the security gate was wide open, and there were no security guards. Something was strange. I thought security would be tighter because it was a containment situation. I parked my car in front of the lab and headed for the main entrance. But I didn't see Alan. Security guard Alan Thompson. Whenever Emily worked late, I would come to pick her up, and Alan would always call Emily for me. That Alan and all the other security team members were gone. Since the main entrance was locked, I decided to open the door from the security office. The moment I stepped into the office, the red letters on the computer screen caught my eye. Sample containment failure. At that moment, I had two choices. Call the police or go check it myself. And don't tell anyone about this. Emily's last request kept echoing in my head. I couldn't risk her career being damaged by my hasty judgment, so I thought it wouldn't be too late to call after I checked the situation. So I decided to go directly into the lab. Looking back now, I regret my hesitation out of concern for her career. Emily must have been in pain at that very moment. When I found a protective suit hanging in the security office, I didn't hesitate to put it on. It's funny, but the thing I was most worried about was not Emily, but my own safety. I checked Emily's work location from the security office, and I headed to the microbial analysis lab. For a few minutes, I walked down the lab corridor, trying to calm myself down. That all of this might be a figment of my imagination. Emily was probably engrossed in an experiment and would laugh out loud when I appeared in this ridiculous outfit. That naive thought was shattered when I passed the first corridor. There were clumps of reddish flesh scattered on the corridor floor, and bloodstains were smeared on the walls in various places. Faced with a scene I had only seen in movies, Emily's career or the lab's secrets no longer mattered. So I started looking for a safe place, and I saw a still operating purification containment room in front of me. Please tell me the situation exactly. This is the Helix lab. I'm not sure if it's a murder scene. But there are bloodstains all over the corridors, and clumps of flesh are scattered on the floor. I don't see any employees, and the security office is empty. I conveyed the situation to the police, but they didn't quite understand, and I transmitted the video I recorded. The police officer told me to wait for a moment, and a few minutes later, the call suddenly cut off. At the time, I just thought it was a communication failure. But the truth I learned later was that the Foundation had intervened from that moment on. Because the things I saw and the videos I recorded were truths that ordinary people should not know. My report must have been immediately detected by the Foundation, and the Foundation agents embedded in various places from military bases to police stations began to move. At that moment, I was completely unaware of such a background and only had the thought of finding Emily. You might think I was brave. No, it wasn't such a simple emotion. The desperate fear of losing a loved one, like a father running into a burning building or a mother throwing herself into a swift current, swallowed up all other fears. The disgusting stench I could feel even through the protective suit. A smell like rotten meat mixed with chemicals. I had to find Emily and get out of this horrible place as soon as possible. When I arrived on the second floor, I stopped for a moment, and something was moving in the reinforced glass containment room at the end of the corridor. At first, I thought it was a person and screamed as I got closer, but it was a horrible monster. That terrifying being that was looking at me from beyond the reinforced glass. I remember it vividly even now. Is there no hope for Emily after all? Should I survive alone and tell the world this truth? Just then, a huge roar echoed from somewhere. I instinctively looked around for a place to hide, and the door to a destroyed security control room caught my eye. I hurried toward it. Beyond it, I could see a security guard's uniform, but what was inside was no longer a person. Reddened skin, a swollen body, and several grotesque arms. I found a pistol lying next to the corpse, picked it up, and got out of that horrible place. Another roar echoed. A few hundred meters away. Or maybe even closer. The sound seemed to be getting closer, as if it was looking for me. The lounge was packed with bizarre entities, and screams were endlessly playing in the containment room. That's right. The clumps of flesh and monsters I encountered were all human. My heart was pounding. My head and body were screaming at me to run away. My breath was labored, and I wanted to get out of this place. But then, at the end of my trembling vision, I saw a lab nameplate that said, Emily. Can you hear me? Don't be scared. I can treat you. I can save you. Wait. No, don't. Don't come closer. Stay back. Emily, is that really you? Talk to me. Damn it. I'm sorry. I have no choice. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Emily, I'm so sorry. I'll end your pain. I'm great. So great, living in Great Chicago. Bravo to Command B2, report status. POG research is in progress. Informant Jack, no visual contact. This is Bravo. Gunshots detected, moving to that area. Located Jack Miller. Is he infected with SCP-610? Negative on contamination at this time. He's wearing protective HMAT gear. Roger, secure the subject in containment capsule and extract immediately. I remember that mark. The mobile task force members took me out of the lab. Should I call it a rescue? No, from the Foundation's perspective, they needed a sample. I heard that the entire Helix lab was burned down. The entire area was engulfed in flames and turned to ash. For a few days after that, I was in a daze. I underwent all sorts of tests to confirm if I was exposed to the infection called the Scarlet Plague. I just stared blankly at the ceiling in a hospital room of an unknown location, intoxicated with sleeping pills. Then, a man came into the hospital room and checked my condition, saying, "You managed to survive. It's not common for someone to face an anomalous entity and not run away, but shoot a gun." He introduced himself as being from the SCP Foundation and asked if I wanted to work with them. Of course, he said that if I wanted to, my memory could be erased, and I could go back to a normal life, but there was no reason to refuse. There must have been a reason why Emily became like that. If I join them, will I be able to find the ones who caused all of this? That's what we do, sir. Did we really have to recruit this guy? He's not a soldier and doesn't have any special skills. He's a guy burning with revenge. I needed a guy who would risk his life. And so, my life was completely changed by joining the SCP Foundation. I found out that there were many people like me, and we were called Greys, who existed between truth and lies. They said that all new trainees at the Foundation are called that. About 20 of us received training together. Starting with what SCP is, to what the Foundation does. What I saw at the Helix lab was just the tip of the iceberg. The Foundation's containment sites, which are tightly embedded all over the world, contain things that are beyond imagination. Secure, contain, protect. It was the Foundation's motto. The thing that was in the Helix lab was an infectious anomalous entity called SCP-610, the flesh that hates. The Foundation researchers who explained it said that in the early stages of infection, it looks like a simple skin rash, but within a few hours, severe scars begin to spread on the chest and arms. After 5 hours, the infection is complete, and after 3 minutes of biological activity stopping, it starts to move again, and from then on, it is no longer human. The things I saw at the lab were in that state. Emily too. The problem was that 610 was not a simple natural phenomenon. It was a physical modification developed by a horrible religious group called the Sarkic cult. And these things were happening simultaneously all over the world. It was confirmed that fully mutated entities actively approached other living things to infect them or settled in one place and spread the virus through the air. They eat human flesh, modify living humans, and say they seek a truth that transcends the flesh by even devouring gods. But in my opinion, they were just a group of crazy fanatics. I heard that the Foundation constantly monitors all information and intelligence related to 610, and immediately dispatches mobile task forces to suspected infected areas to carry out purification operations. So I received rigorous training for half a year, and my body was gradually honed into a weapon through various strengthening injections and procedures. We mainly learned how to operate the Foundation's advanced weapon systems and tactical responses to biological anomalous entities. At that time, 11 trainees left the training grounds, requesting amnestics. When I asked, "Do the people who fail get killed?" the officer in charge laughed, saying that the Foundation also has an ethics committee and that we are not the bad guys. Actually, I didn't care what the answer was. I could never erase my memories. And so, 2 more years passed, and now, I am preparing for a mission. The mobile task force I belong to is Theta-9. Our job is to burn down infected areas to prevent the spread of SCP-610 and neutralize the Sarkic cultists and entities that spread 610. The day I received the truth, those who took me out of the lab, and now I, together, bury the truth. Theta-9 Epsilon has reported that the purification of the Scarlet Plague is complete. Insertion into the target area is scheduled in 60 minutes. The team will incinerate all mutated entities and remnants. And I have a top priority target. His name is Kradlin. A former senior researcher at the Helix lab, a Sarkic follower. Should I collect a sample? No, the target is to be killed. Stand up to contain the threat. Mobile Task Force, the SCP protects. So you are walking the gray path. Living as a gray between white lies and black truths so that no one else has to face the truth I saw and the fear I experienced. That is the fate I chose. The fire will never go out from March 15, 2010, the day it all began. On March 15, 2010, lost her in the basement again. Red flesh crawling on her skin. Emily begged me not to. Stay in the memory wipes. Work on me. The foundation calls. Between the black truth and white lies, I carry all her final cries. I'm great. So great. Can't watch her run away. I'm great. So great. Should have saved her that day, but I stay. I stay when she runs away. I'm great. So great, living in great Chicago labs. Burned to the ground, but never found a patch on my chest. Failed her when she needed me best. Brushing samples in her anomalies that make you mad. Now I hunt what she became, carrying all this grief and shame. I'm so great, so the world can be safe. When she runs away, living in a dark place. Every breach I see her face, every scream in that place. My eyes watch me when I could have saved her back then. Emily, Emily, why did I listen to your last transmission? Keter class containment cells remind me of my personal foundation. Secrets found, but I deny them. They say I'm useful, used, but I see the truth behind reality. Between what's false and real, this is how I chose to live. I'm so great, fighting monsters every day. I'm great. So great. So no one feels this way. She stays in my memory. Fade away. I'm great. So great. This is the price I pay. Great, great will always be great. Amen.